Okay, so this video is going to pick up where the last one left off. The Dimension Style Manager 1 video went through our first 5 tabs. We have 2 more tabs to go through: alternate units and tolerances. So I'm going to go through those, and then I'm also going to talk about when you might want to create a new dimension style, because I've had that question quite a bit in the past. And then we're also going to set up a couple of additional dimension styles for our template. So the first thing is to get into our Dimension Style Manager. So again, we go to the Home tab, we come over to Annotation, click on Annotation, and click on this second icon down from the top, that Dimension Style icon. It brings us into our Dimension Style Manager. We're going to go ahead and click on Standard again and click on Modify. And so the first 2 things are our Alternate Units tab and our Tolerances tab. Alternate Units, what it's used for is whenever we want to dual dimension something. So we want to dimension it in inch units as well as in metric would be one example. And so we can turn on alternate units, and then we have our unit formats in here of what we can use for our alternate units. You know, maybe we wanted to dimension in decimal, but we also want to do fractional. So we can make those fractional stacked. We can choose our precision out of this. Most of the time with fractions, you're going to go to the nearest 1/16 of an inch. So we can set our precision to that. And then our multiplier for alternate units. If we're just dimensioning based on, we want decimal dimensions as well as fractional dimensions, our multiplier for alternate units would be 1. If we're going to do this for metric, we would select decimal. You'd set your precision to be 2 or whatever specified, and then your multiplier would be 25.4, because 1 inch is equal to 25.4 millimeters. So that's how we can use AutoCAD to go ahead and dual dimension this in inches and in metric, just by setting up our alternate units here. And then we could also, if we wanted to round our distances, we can set that parameter. If we wanted to apply a suffix, like maybe we wanted to go ahead and label each of our alternate units as being millimeters, we can go ahead and put millimeters in there. If we wanted to put a prefix in, we could do that. Also with metric dimensioning, it's common to suppress trailing zeros. So if we wanted to suppress our trailing zeros, we can turn that on. And it's common to go ahead and leave leading zeros on for metric units. So we'd go ahead and leave leading turned off. And then placement would just be, where do you want your alternate units to go? Do you want them to go after your primary value, or do you want them to go below? Those are our 2 options. And so those would be the options we would choose when we want to dimension something twice, whether it be we want to use decimal and fraction, or if we wanted to use decimal and metric, or fractional and metric. Okay, but for our standard style, alternate units is going to be turned off. So go ahead and uncheck the box and leave things the way they are. And then the other tab we can take a look at is tolerances. In tolerances, we've got our different methods. So we've got none, which is set by default. If we choose symmetrical out of here, it's going to give us a plus or minus a certain number, a certain unit. And so we can set our precision here. A lot of times your tolerances will be in a different precision than what your normal dimension style is in. So we could select this to be to 3 places. We could say that this is going to be point plus or minus 5 thousandths. And so we want to go plus 5 or minus 5. So we'd adjust our upper value here, and that's what's going to control our tolerance the way it's shown here. The other couple of things, just your vertical position of how you want this to be displayed in the drawing, whether it be bottom, middle, or top. Also, if we want to suppress any zeros, whenever you use a symmetrical tolerance and we're using a decimal inch drawing, we're going to suppress our leading zeros. So we can go ahead and check the box for leading zeros. And if we had alternate units, that's where these 2 boxes come in. So if we have our metric units turned on also, then we can control our tolerance for those alternate units as well. Okay, so that's symmetrical. We'll take a look at these others in here. We've got deviation. This is where we go plus a certain number minus a different number. So whenever we don't have a bilateral tolerance that's equal in both directions. So we can turn that on, and then we can adjust our upper value. Maybe we want it to be plus 3 thousandths, and we want it to be -6. And you can see over in this graphic of how that's going to be, how your dimensions are going to be impacted by the numbers you put in here. If we continue on down, we've got limits. Limits changes the way your dimensions are displayed. Limits, you're specifying what the top number, the top acceptable limit is, as well as the bottom acceptable limit. And so it's going to take what you've drawn in AutoCAD and it's going to measure it, and it's going to add these tolerances to it. And so with limits, if we say our value can be 5 thousandths greater, or it can be 4 thousandths smaller, then our gap in between there is going to be 9 thousandths based on the way it was drawn. So it's going to take our dimension the way it's measured, and it's going to add 5 thousandths to it. That's going to be our upper limit, and it's going to take the way it's drawn and it's going to subtract 4 thousandths from it, and that's going to be our lower unit. So that's how our limit dimensions work. And then basic dimensions. Basic dimensions just draws a frame around the text showing that these are our basic dimensions. Primarily you're going to be messing with symmetrical, limits, and deviation. So for this one, go ahead and set it to none because this is our standard style, and we'll go ahead and hit OK there. And now I said I'd talk about when you might want to create a new dimension style. I would say whenever you have 3 or more dimensions that all would share the same style, that would be beneficial to go ahead and create a new style. Outside of that, you're going to just make changes in properties, which we're going to look at here in a couple videos. But anytime that you've got 3 or more dimensions that all share the same properties, it probably makes sense to go ahead and create its own dimension style for that. Okay, so having said that, there's a couple more dimension styles that we want to create for our template. And so one of those is an SATC annotative decimal. So we're going to use this standard, and we're going to click on standard, then click on new, and we're going to call this SATC-ANNO-decimal. And we're going to start with our standard dimension style, and then we're going to go ahead and hit continue. And now I'm just going to show you a series of pictures that I've taken so that you can verify the settings in your SATC anno decimal. Okay, so here's those pictures. Here's the first one. Just check all the parameters, all the settings on yours to make sure they match what you see here. And there's going to be 7 of these, so go ahead and take a minute to verify these. Okay, here's the second tab for symbols and arrows. Here's the third tab for your text tab. Here's the fourth tab for your fit tab. Next tab is primary units, so verify your settings on primary units. Here's alternate units and what those settings should be. And then finally, here's tolerances and for what those should be. Okay, so when you have those all set the way it was shown, you can go ahead and hit OK in here. And now you'll have your SATC anno decimal. And now after you have that created, we can make a copy of it and create our fractional version of that. So go ahead and click on SATC anno decimal, click on modify, not modify, click on new, and we're going to change this to be SATC anno fractional. We're going to start with that SATC anno decimal, and it's going to be an annotative dimension style, so go ahead and hit continue. And then the only changes that we need to make for this one is going to be under primary units. So go ahead and select your primary units tab, change your unit format to be fractional, change your precision to be 1/16 of an inch. Your fractional format will be horizontal, and everything else will be the same compared to your SATC annotative decimal style. So you can go ahead and hit OK here. So we've got our 2 new styles set up, and that's in addition to our other 2 styles. And so if you don't have all 4 of these showing up right now, come talk to me and we'll get that fixed so that you have all 4 of those to be able to complete your assignments. So go ahead and click close here, and we're going to save these changes back to our template. So click on save as, change your files of type to be a .dwt, click on ACAD, click on save. Do you want to replace it? Yes. Template options, hit OK. And then be sure and close out of your template so that you're not making any changes to that template and saving your changes back to that template. And so that wraps up our 2 dimension style videos showing you how to create dimension styles. We created some new ones, save those changes back to our templates, and I talked a little bit about when you would want to create a new dimension style.